Welcome to the Econo-Pak Contract Food Packaging Podcast. I'm Sarah, the Sales and Marketing Manager, and we're here with Mike, our Vice President, and Tim, our Director of Procurement. And today we're going to be talking about EPR.
Extended producer responsibility. So it's a policy-driven initiative that's kind of taken root in 5 states so far. And essentially it really shifts the burden of waste management that's associated with packaging, consumer and packaged goods, to the actual manufacturer producer, more so than government, state, federal facilities. So, I can remember growing up in school and there was always this big push on recyclability, recycling all these things. Mm-hmm. Where does that infrastructure come from? So the government, right? But how do you quantify recycling all the components of every type of packaging there can be? It's such a large landscape, and creating the equipment, the infrastructure to do so is extremely cost effective for 5% of the stuff that rolls through there. A lot of it is really difficult to recycle and get back into the recycling stream. So this is kind of an initiative that you're going to be responsible for coming up with sustainable packaging that meets different levels of requirements that are going to be mandated at the state level thus far.
Mm-hmm. So, like you said, there's currently only 5 states that are mandated to do it right now. And it depends on the political landscape and everything. But we're trying to be forward thinking and bring this to light now in case it becomes more prevalent across the United States, and try to educate people on what's necessary to make sure you're aligned with EPR.
Right, because I think when I think about what's the structure of this, how is it going to work, and my mind shifts right to quality. There's so many third-party quality that organizations that help vet and help ensure compliance in different aspects of everything in manufacturing. It's going to be the same thing for this, EPR, and they're going to have producer responsibility organizations that are going to be rooted in whatever the compliance is of the state. And in its infancy right now, state level, it's probably going to grow nationally, federal backed, and you're going to have to work with these organizations to fulfill whatever the requirements are, right? So then what happens is there's going to be a criterion of what your packaging looks like in the landscape of the landfill, for instance. Mm-hmm. So you're going to be financially responsible, not just theoretically responsible for trying to do the right thing. There's dollar signs attached to how much waste you're creating, how sustainable it is, what's the likelihood of your material getting back into some type of life cycle recycle stream. As a great case is aluminum. We're probably recycling using aluminum from the 60s. I mean, it's one of the most recyclable materials out there, and then some are not, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of what are you doing to ensure that the packaging that you're creating is recyclable and makes sense? Because look at the landfills, right? Look at all the costs that go around trying to recycle these materials. So there's a lot of emphasis on that. So essentially trying to get ahead of it is, we do have some resources in-house to help guide people to make, I think, at least more informed choices on, what type of packaging they would like.
Are you seeing like some of our suppliers, putting programs together and pieces of, information that, that you're using for your studies on it?
Like holistically, probably not, but case by case, yes.
Yeah.
So, I think as, we see projects roll across our desk, we're always looking for the checkbox of, what can we do here? Yeah. Does it make sense for us to kind of guide people to a more sustainable route? And there is some technical challenges around that too, because we're not just talking about packaging that contains PCR materials, right? We do a lot of flexo here, so we have, we have a real, I would think, we have a real discipline, and we have a lot of resources and knowledge on that specific facet of food packaging. And how can we do that? How can we help people create sustainable type packaging? So we dive into a lot of those questions. We try to check off those boxes, and there's always a lot of interest. But what is the cost behind it, right?
Yeah.
So you're talking a little bit more cost upfront, but really it's peace of mind at the end, right? So you're building this culture of sustainability with your packaging and balancing out the marketing of it too, because there's a lot of emphasis on aesthetics in food packaging, because we're competing against XYZ on the shelf. We're paying sliding fees for things.
Yeah.
We're trying to get the best product placement. What does sustainability type materials or combinations of them, how does that affect the aesthetic of our package? How can we position that to let our customer base know? How does that help us in the EPR program? So there's a lot of things to balance.
Yeah.
A lot of packaging materials that we love that are high content PCR by themselves, are cloudy, don't have great barrier properties. So there's a lot of challenges around that, but then we think about how can we design structures to do like a co-extrusion process. We work with a lot of suppliers that love hearing about these challenges, and we can work with them to put formulations together to tackle some of those problems. But it's extremely challenging for us right now to think about how can we do this cost effectively with the best print production possible. So there's some challenges there, but working with a lot of our customers right now, they're at least extremely interested in it to look at it. And I think building that conversation as the EPR kind of grows. So they're thinking by, I think, 2030, maybe 15 states will have laws passed with different types of compliances.
Which will be here before you know it.
Yeah.
For sure.
I know that Sarah and I have a lot of sales calls, and people are asking the right questions about sustainable packaging, and they're like, hey, does it need a different type of equipment, or do you have resources available for us to learn more about it?
Yes.
And the answer is that we're developing that. We want to be the experts when it comes to that information, and I know you're spending a lot of time learning about it, and definitely it's a great resource that our company can provide.
Yeah, and Tim, you've mentioned that you recommend doing a pilot program where you start, if you're new to sustainability for your packaging, starting with one SKU set.
Right. So it's always a good case use, right? Case study building. What's the purpose of this? How can we? I guess we can help create goals, but what is really the purpose of this? What are you trying to do with your packaging? We can certainly make it more sustainable, greener to an extent, but looking at the performance of that, right?
Yeah.
Against whatever the brand and marketing is of the, and it doesn't have to be an overly conscious sustainable company, right? It can be. I think the goal is to try to roll as many brands into something like this, because then you start to develop a continuity on how these materials are recycled, right? I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges, is there's so many different types of food packaging and different types of production treatments and type of barrier treatments on different substrates. When you think about corrugate, all corrugate's recycled, but when you do a full color litho wrap, right, when you put coatings on recycled materials, it adds another challenge to it. And it's okay, do we really need that?
Yeah.
Right? And so then you start backing into the requirements set by a lot of distribution centers, that they're looking for, some type of sustainability, whether it's carbon, related, as far as like dialing back, the amount of packaging or what the materials are made of. I mean, there's that's kind of helping push that a bit.
Yeah, for sure. I think, with that, it's like, obviously there's cost and things associated with it, and also understanding what their own initiatives are. So I think, putting all of this together in one, environment to try to help people, guide them towards better decision making. And, obviously there's laws in place and there's things that we'll have to adhere to in all states, hopefully eventually. We have, we'll have that, but there's like, their own like brand, how they want to be perceived in those different arenas. So
Yeah, there's opportunities to test this on the market as well. You could, as we were saying, going one SKU at a time, types of markets that would be, receptive to that type of packaging. For example, Trader Joe's, maybe if your product aligns with that products in that market, then you could test it there and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great kind of way to like amalgamize the ingredients. Like Trader Joe's has a list of what they won't accept into their franchises, right? So it's like, and now having the other piece that kind of fits with it, right? So they're brands that are extremely nutrition, health forward for various reasons. It's like, how it's kind of oxymoronic, right? But there's like organic soda, because and it has X amount of ingredients, whatever. If you like that, right? So there's products for that. What's the packaging look like? Okay, well, it's glass. Is it painted, printed? Can't recycle that. So it's like, how far can you take it that makes sense, that doesn't really dip too far into your margins? I mean, I think it needs to be I think mindful of the financial responsibilities, but also forward looking to the future. How can we kind of put things together that's like a standard, right? A standard recycling practice of materials. And there's a lot of ambiguity. People are trying to figure it out right now. A lot of packaging materials in theory just don't reproduce super well. So a lot of the dates are kind of being pushed out as they're trying to develop like solutions. So in my mind, it's like, you want something that you feel good about. It's going to make sense financially. It's going to look beautiful on the shelf. How do you balance all these things together for your brand?
A lot of that too is like how we collect the data, right? And track that data of like, the different types of materials that we're working with, and then like what, call outs do they have that are, yield results towards their sustainable initiatives, and trying to help develop that. But, a lot of data tracking I could see happening over the next couple of years, and like, really just finding ways for people to, it's like you almost have like your nutrition guide on the back of the packaging. I could see it being where it's going to, hey, our packaging is like sustainable, recyclable, whatever the call outs are, being something that is presented on the packaging as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think a great piece of this, I think, is missed quite a bit. All the work that's gone into creating something that has, whatever percentage recyclable or whatever the story is. I don't know that there's a great bit of storytelling on various brands. I think the number one challenge is where to tell that story, right? And what that point of contact looks like, and how they're talking about it. A lot of people may not be speaking about it, but I think as this kind of policy, like these laws grow, the PROs are going to kind of be you're going to really want to back into one, or have people that are subject matter experts to just guide you out of the gate, to be like, we know, like, right, New York, right? They're working on some stuff, right? Pennsylvania, they're working on some things, we kind of know. So it's like, how can we push you guys into making good decisions already? And there's going to be a period where we're going to figure it out. We have this in place. It is or it isn't going to work, and then just make adjustments.
And as we're learning, this could be a big part of our learning center, that on our website, and taking that information as we learn about it and the different things, we have it available for people to go and learn more about it. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about our learning center that we're developing.
Yeah, so we're building out a learning center on our website so that all the information that we've put out thus far and for the future will be organized in a place that's easily filterable and searchable. So, and we'll group it by types of content. So for example, sustainability will be one of those, and it'll be, you could drop it down to talk about EPR or, the specific materials like PCR. So I know you've been also talking about creating learning materials for specifics about procurement and material types. So definitely going to be interesting working with you to develop those materials for that.
Yeah, I think, having a plan in place or a guideline, in procurement when we're kind of going down the check boxes of, what our customers are looking for, and, our preferred vendors, suppliers that offer these materials, and then, dialing into what we know is going to work for stand-up pouches at various weights and out, understanding what the printability is going to be like, understanding what gauge material runs beautifully through our equipment to maximize efficiencies. Like all these things, we're trying to call out right now and kind of build around to be able to communicate that success to other people and just keep it efficient.
Cool.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today to talk about EPR. And we look forward to chatting with you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right.